What are we going to talk about today, gunfighters? How about stashing firearms? Super secret squirrel stashes for the modern gunfighter. How do you store your guns? In a vehicle, in a house, in a cache, or a cache, if you want to pronounce it another way. That's what we're going to talk about today on Gunfighter Life. Welcome to the podcast where we talk about guns, gunfighting tactics. Today, gun storage. The right way, with Almighty God at the center, Judeo-Christian values, and real-world first-hand experience. I'm going to throw in a rapid-fire bio. While you're listening or skipping through that, if you could like, subscribe, leave a review of the podcast, that would be appreciated. And we'll get into it. Blessed to have served in the military, law enforcement, combat veteran, private contractor, competition shooter, lifelong hunter, guide. Blessed by God that He got me through all those things so I could share this firsthand training, knowledge, experience with you to serve you today. Let's dive into the podcast. When we talk about gun storage, let me be clear, your number one gun storage should be on your hip in a good holster for your EDC. Doesn't matter how many nice fancy guns you have at home in a safe, if you get, a gun pointed at you at 7-Eleven to stop and rob, all those guns at home in those cool storage places might as well be on the moon for you. They're not doing you any good. So have a gun on you and a good hip holster. If you can't handle a hip holster, if you're just not cool enough, I guess appendix carry or something, but have a gun on you. That's number one. The next one I'm going to talk about, because it's going to be more accessible than guns at home, is vehicle storage. First off, how do people covet? It is written, you shall not covet your neighbor's house, your neighbor's wife, his male servant, his female servant, his ox, his donkey, or anything that is your neighbor's. That's the 10th commandment. You shall not covet. I would throw in there, you shall not covet your neighbor's guns. But sometimes people do covet your guns. I've had my guns stolen before, out of somebody else's vehicle, out of my vehicle. It happens. So the first thing is out of sight, less likely to get coveted. You want it so if somebody looks in the vehicle, they're not going to see the gun. The easiest way to do this is with just a jacket or something like that. Put your ammo, your gun in one of those like reusable Walmart bags that people think are going to save the environment. Put it in one of those, seal it up. A lot of them have Velcro. There you go. Somebody looks back there, they think food. They don't think something I'm going to keep or pawn or rob or whatever. That's what they think. So keep it out of sight, out of mind. That's just an easy one. But just put a jacket on it, right? If it's, let's say you carry one of those little hashtag #MeToo Ruger LCPs or something like it, but you want a bigger fighting handgun, maybe have it somewhere between the seats and put a jacket over it. Right? That's just simple, easy. There are all kinds of cars with secret compartments, and obviously you know what those in your car are better than I do. And unless you get robbed by like a Ford dealer and you're driving a Ford F-150, unless you get robbed by like somebody that works at a dealership or an engineer, they probably don't know where all those secret compartments are. So there's another good option. I would not recommend like a center console or a glove box if you're worried about theft, because they're some of the first places that bad guys are going to look. If you have a locking glove box, that does give, an extra layer of protection. And some people will gasp about, having a gun in their car. Somebody can steal it. Yeah, somebody can steal it. Guess what? Somebody can steal your guns at home too. You lay up your treasures where rust corrupts and thieves can break in and steal. That's just the nature of life, right? You could have the gun on you. You could be the best, most well-trained CIA spook, Navy SEAL, spaceship, door gunner, triathlon winner, and some meth addict could walk up behind you when you're busy doing something and shoot you in the liver and take your gun off of you. It happens. Nothing is safe in this world. All that we have, it's on loan to us. Everything belongs to God. And that's a good mindset to have. Could somebody steal something out of your car? Yeah. Could somebody steal something off of you? Yeah. Could somebody steal something out of your house? Yes. Believe it or not, can somebody steal something out of your gun safe at home? Yes. So it is what it is. You're trading some level of security for accessibility. That's a real trade-off. You have to decide if that trade-off is worth it for you. Can somebody steal a gun out of your car? Yes, but it's not your fault if somebody steals a gun out of your car. That's their fault. It's like saying if a woman is walking down the street and somebody grabs her and she didn't have a strong man there to protect her and she gets taken advantage of, it's her fault. It's not her fault. It's the guy that did it's fault. So just get that out of the way philosophically. Somebody takes something that belongs to you, then that's their fault. It's not your fault. If they do something bad with it, that's on them. The crime is not the gun. The crime is the action, the evil thing they did with the gun. Now, I wouldn't go lay your AR-15 out on a playground or leave it on the bleachers at a sporting event, right? That's kind of silly. I don't think I should have to overly justify that. But, again, out of sight, out of mind. You want it accessible like an SBR in your truck, put it between your seats and put a jacket over it. If somebody's going to smash out your window and go through your car, yeah, they're going to find it. But they're probably going to find it no matter where you have it in your car. It is what it is. The whole point you have it and have it in your vehicle is so that you can have access to it if you should need it. Active shooter event or something like that. Now, if you're going on, a long road trip or you live out of your vehicle, you're a, traveling person for your work or whatever, you spend a lot of time on the road, you may consider one of those locking gun safes. I wouldn't consider them for the gun I wanted to get and access to quickly. But, if you're driving, you want a small arsenal and you want to keep it in the vehicle, not the one you need access to right away, and you want it in your vehicle in an extra layer of protection, maybe one of those bolt-in locking safes. So that's in your vehicle. The other thing you could do, and this is not accessible at all, is some kind of clandestine thing. One of the things I do for work and I'm trained on for work is like people that hide things in vehicles in all kinds of different spots. A lot of times you can take out the vents and push stuff in behind the vents. A lot of times you can take off what in today's modern vehicles is just like molded on plastic panels and put stuff behind those. In case somebody does break into your vehicle and take your stuff, at least you have one backup gun back there, just kind of a throwaway gun, a gun you don't really care about. A Glock would be a good one for that. Just have it in there, places like that. Now, if you weld and do stuff like that and you want to get crazy, you're probably going to know more about that and where to stash that in your vehicle than I am. Spare tires are a good one. Under a spare tire, a lot of people that are going to break in and do a quick smash and grab of a vehicle, BFMV, burglary from motor vehicle, they're not going to look under a spare tire. They're not going to take the time to probably do that. So that might be another good place. But again, we're not talking about guns you can access quickly. These are like long-term storage guns. Or you're going on a long trip, you have your EDC gun, but maybe you want a backup gun in there somewhere. So that's something to consider. The next one, guns at home that you want to store, kind of secretly. And again, the more secure you get, the less accessible it's going to be. I don't care how good these marketing things are with the fast open safes and all that stuff. Until a burglar breaks in and that safe reaches over with a gloved hand and smacks you in the face and then shoves your pistol or your shotgun in your proper firing position in your body so that you're ready to go, it's wasting time. That's generally not a good trade. Now, you might make that trade if you have small children or something like that, but you're giving up time. I don't care how fast and how biometric and how many buzzwords they put on the safe, you're giving up time. So unless you need that for denying access to a child or somebody in your household that's suicidal, and I would certainly make that trade, I would not bother with those for your go-to home defense gun. Hopefully a shotgun, but maybe a carbine or a handgun. I would not make that trade. I would have that gun accessible and ready to go and easy to grab. Again, somebody breaks into your house and steals it, that's on them, that's not on you. What do I do if somebody steals my shotgun? You buy another shotgun. What do you do if somebody breaks in your house and they're trying to kill you and you're a family and you can't get to it because it's locked in the safe and you're tired and you don't remember the combination, then you're dead. So everything's a risk versus reward analysis. That's my advice on that. Unless you have to for, preservation of life, don't add an extra barrier and perhaps the worst day of your life to you getting good performance, you getting fast hits on target. So have your go-to home defense gun ready to go. Now, I'm going to skip over like big gun safes and stuff like that in this episode because I don't need to talk about that, right? You guys know about that. One of the old classic ones, and this is not accessible, is putting them in the paneling. Like just knock down some drywall, take down a small, whatever your smallest, shortest wall of drywall is, assuming there's no water pipes running through there. You take off the drywall, assuming you have a house constructed with drywall, and many are, and in between the studs, you put your guns. That's it. Pack them in cosmoline, like the Russians do. Pack them in real thick, dirty, nasty grease. That's going to be a giant pain to get off, but will preserve the guns. You put them in between the studs of the drywall. You drywall over it. You paint over it. There you go. If you want like a long-term storage, I'm not going to use these guns. I don't shoot these guns. They're there for, in case I need them one day, I don't want to sell them. I want to put them in there and basically forget about them. There you go. Probably more safe than a safe. Because if somebody breaks in and they really want to, they can get into a safe or just take the whole safe. They're probably, unless they're looking for copper or something, not knocking down holes in walls. And that would take a while. So that's a pretty good and kind of old school solution. The one and probably the best one I think that makes the most sense is going under your house, getting a giant piece of PVC pipe and sticking it up under your house, under the crawl space under your house. Assuming like you own a house, right? If you rent an apartment, this is probably not a good idea. But assuming there's no like public access, common access, and you have a domicile, a single family dwelling, you can get up under that house and take a piece of PVC pipe and mount it up under the house. This is more accessible because you just have to screw the cap off. Also, if you just rig it so it's running beside another pipe and it looks like it connects, even if it doesn't because you don't want it connected to an active water pipe or anything like that, if you just attach it underneath there, unless you've got somebody that's a plumber that's going to look for that specifically, they're probably, one, not going to crawl under the crawl space of your house. Number two, they're probably not going to try and decipher what pipes go where, because who does that and why, right? So have a big piece of PVC pipe with your gun, again, packed in cosmoline or in a plastic bag soaked in oil, or take the whole container, the whole section of pipe, fill it with motor oil, and then put your gun in there. As long as it's not a wooden stock or something like that, it's going to get ruined. But like if it's big enough to put a handgun in that's polymer and metal and oil's not going to hurt it, fill the whole thing with motor oil or some cheap oil. It'll be fine. It'll probably be good as long as you would ever need it to be good. Now, if you're going to use a rifle with a wood stock or something like that, or an optic, obviously don't do that. You're going to want to use some cosmoline, some axle grease, some of that really thick, sticky, nasty automotive grease that gets on everything and sticks on everything. That's kind of what you want in this scenario. Make sure you clean it before you take it out and shoot it, but that's also a good idea. Just a section of pipe laid up under your house that looks like it's supposed to be there. Again, unless you're a professional or a journeyman plumber or something, they're not going to realize that pipe is in the wrong place. That's a pretty good hiding place. Announcement for listeners. I'm going to try something new on the podcast. It's important to look at oneself soberly, circumspectly, see what one could do better. I think it's fair to say, by most measures, I put out quite a bit of content. A lot of podcasters do once a week. I've been doing, at least on weekdays, daily shows for quite a while, putting those out. And the podcast has grown, and I'm very blessed by that. But on things I could do better, things I could improve, I thought mistakenly that if I just grew the podcast and listenership, that percentage of people that became patrons would grow. That doesn't seem to be the case, although I'm very blessed and have gotten a few more patrons. It has not grown in direct proportion. I have cashed out retirement accounts, took on another job, private security contracting, which makes quite a bit more money than the podcast. But if I want the podcast to grow, if I want it to make enough money that one day and make it the primary source of income, I should do something different. So here's the idea. Hopefully, put out at least one new episode a week on the general podcast platforms. Now, there may be more, but one a week. Because I think there's a substantial portion out there that thinks if I can get an episode every day for free, why would I go and pay for it? Fair. So, we're going to try this at least for a while and see if it helps. Now, if you're a fairly new listener, there's episodes on the major podcast platforms that go back to 2019. There's a lot of content. So, if you're a new listener, that shouldn't be an issue for a while. If you go back and listen to all those episodes and you want more, then hopefully you consider the podcast being worth something to you. I don't expect you to work for free. It is written, "You shall not muzzle the ox while it treads out the grain, and a laborer is worthy of his wages." I don't expect you to, fix my car for free, or I don't have grass. I live as a nomad, but if I did, I wouldn't expect you to come cut my grass for free. So if you think the podcast is worth something worth supporting, you want the greater amount of content, go to Patreon. There should be a Patreon link in the show notes. And I shouldn't assume that you know what Patreon is. Patreon is a crowdsource funding way to support somebody that you care about their content. Sign up for a monthly amount. You can sign up for $5. You can sign up for more. And you'll get access not just to the new stuff, but all the old stuff too. And there's a lot of content on there. As of the time of this recording, there's over 1,300 posts on Patreon. There's a lot of content on there that's only for patrons. Some of that is Patreon-only episodes. Some of that is, which, by the way, is commercial-free. So if you're tired of those, that might be worth a few bucks right there. Some of it is written content. Some of it is photo. Some of it is video. If you're already on Patreon, you already know about it. It's Good Shepherd Training on Patreon. You should recognize it when you see it. If you do not want to become a monthly subscriber, you don't like monthly subscriptions, there's a small subset to whom that is the case. I will put many episodes on there a la carte. There is a shop on there. You can go buy an episode. Pick and choose, like this episode looks good. You can purchase that episode and listen to it. There's other things on there as well, but if you just want an episode, if you want to see what's new, because it's been a while, or you're used to a new episode every day, go there and check out, go to Patreon. You don't have to put in your credit card or anything to check out Patreon. Click the shop button, and you can do a one-time thing if you don't want to do a monthly purchase. We're going to try that for a while, see how it works. Hopefully it drives up the number of patrons. I really hope to see you there. So scroll down and hit that Patreon link in the show notes. Now, they also make some tailor-made products. One of the coolest ones that I've seen is a paint can. And they make one specifically to store guns. Also, I've seen in hardware stores where they just have empty paint cans. You just buy like the old school metal paint cans that are empty. Okay, either one of those. Or if you have that kind of poor redneck mentality of how I grew up, just wait till you use a gallon of paint. It's going to be dirty and nasty and sloppy anyway. Turn it over, let all the other paint drain out of it, kind of make a mess with it so it looks like a used paint can, and make sure you leave it outside long enough in the heat and the dry air so that all the paint in there dries. That's kind of key, right? All the paint in there dries, and then you can store a handgun or something like that in there. Put it in your garage, put it, under a sink or something like that with a paintbrush on top of it, an old used paintbrush on top of it. Is it 100% foolproof? No, but somebody that's going to break into your house probably isn't going to go through all your cans of paint. Let's be real. So that's a pretty good one. They do make products like the false pictures, and I guess they're not false. There is an actual picture on the front, or like an American flag or something, and then behind it there's some kind of storage container that either goes into the wall or just is very thin that will hold a gun or something, gun, silver, gold, whatever you want to put in there. Okay, you could go that route if you want to. Probably somebody that breaks in, unless they're trying to steal the painting itself, which they're probably not, because I doubt they're going to assume, unless you have a really expensive house, that it's an original painting. But you get the idea. There's a number of things you can do like that. Also like that, there's the kind of coffee tables that are actual coffee tables, but they have the storage and a place you wouldn't expect, like where the top comes up and you can put stuff underneath there. You could also just do that with a regular table. If it's traditional style, they'll have the tabletop and then they'll have some wood that goes down and there'll be like a rim. You could just take some particle board or something like that and go up and make the whole bottom flat, so you get like a false bottom, and put a bunch of stuff in there. You could do that as well. Again, a lot of people that break in aren't going to go through all that hassle. They're going to go to common places where people store their goods. Safes. They're going to go to the master bedroom. They're going to go through the drawers in the master bedroom. They're going to go where the mattress is, where the pillows are. That's where they're going to look for valuable stuff. People in general, I know this from just experience and being a cop and things, people tend to store valuable stuff near where they spend their most time. And criminals don't assume they're stupid. They know that too. So maybe do the reverse of that if you don't want your stuff stolen. But something like a coffee table with a false bottom, that could work. There is, of course, the old trick of taking a big old book, go to a Goodwill or something, or a bookstore or library when they're having a sale, and find a really big old book that's not crazy out of place, and then cut it out and put whatever gun you want in there. Now, that's a pretty common one, but again, somebody that just breaks in that's looking for quick money, probably not going to go through all your books if you have a collection of them. So that is something you may also consider. Again, that's a classic, just carving out the book with the pages and putting the gun or valuables in there. And really, the sky's the limit if you just are creative and think outside the box. Again, none of this is foolproof. There's, putting stuff in the freezer. You could do that and freeze it in something that doesn't look out of place in the freezer, and just freeze it if you want to freeze an entire gun. Or probably better for that would be silver or cash or things like that. It's a pretty well-known way to do it. You could say get a thing of like frozen peas, a giant bag of it at Costco or whatever, and take the peas out and put a gun or something in there. Make sure it's lubricated and protected properly. Put it in the freezer in the bag. Again, if somebody goes through your whole freezer, that's one thing, but most people probably aren't. Just use your imagination, right? I don't know your house and your layout. So with that, guys, I'm going to start wrapping up. I should say this actually wasn't on the top of my list to do, but I put out a poll today on the Patreon page. If you're not a patron, you may consider it, mostly to support the show, but also there's some cool insider content on there. The patrons voted. When I last checked, this was the number one episode in the running. And again, I wasn't real hip on doing it. But because of them, this is what I am recording. So with that said, if you want to become a patron, please become a patron. If you don't, and you just want some of the cool stuff on Patreon, like that, voting was open to the public. Like anybody that went to the Patreon page, member or not, could vote. There's quite a bit of content on there that you can just see. You don't have to become a paid patron, because I want you to kind of get a feel for what's on Patreon. And if you decide it's worth some value to you, imagine all the stuff on there that's hidden that you can't see, and become a patron for that. So go to the Patreon page. There should be a link in the show notes. Whether you want to become a paid member or not, check it out. So you can do things like vote for podcast episodes that you would like to get. Get a lot of insider-only content that the general public doesn't get. Get access to some of my old classes and PowerPoints. And, as it also benefits me, be part of a really cool group of dudes. A really good group of men on there that, it's not just me on there, it's a lot of men helping each other, iron sharpening iron. And that's a good thing to be a part of. And it's well worth it, I think. So, just a thought there. Consider going to Patreon. Again, there should be a link in the show notes. Even if you don't want to sign up, you don't have to give a credit card or anything. It's just a link. You can go view stuff on there. With that, I appreciate you guys. I view much social media as a cancer. It's going to tie into the tactical tip today. Like, I suspended my Instagram. I got off of TikTok. I try and not spend a lot of time on YouTube. I try not to watch a bunch of stuff on there. I've actually, by God's grace, been doing pretty good at staying off there. It can be useful, like if you're trying to figure out how to work on a car or something like that, looking up a specific video, but don't let it be a time vampire. I don't know if you'd even consider it social media, but one of the things I think is less disgusting than a lot of the other social medias is Pinterest. It was one of the early social medias. I think it's more geared towards women, but there's a lot of cool tactical gun guy stuff on there too. What made me think about that is if you could go to Pinterest and put in like secret gun storage stuff, and it'll show you, it's kind of made for that. Consider it like an old school magazine that you flip through and see all the pictures and stuff like that, but it's digital, so you can pretty much change it to whatever you want. Pretty cool. One of the earlier social medias I was ever on. I'm not on there all the time, but I do have the screen name on there as Sergeant. Made that a long time ago, back when I was a sergeant in the military. If you look for Sergeant on there and you want to, you can maybe check out some of my stuff. That's not why I'm plugging it. I get no kickback. I'm not affiliated with Pinterest or anything. Just if you want stuff like this, ideas for where to store stuff, you may consider checking out Pinterest. It's not just for women baking cakes and soccer moms. There's a lot of cool stuff on there. So that's your tactical tip of the day. Maybe a less disgusting kind of social media. And with that, your tactical verse of the day. I said it once, I will say it again in this episode. The 10th commandment. You shall not covet your neighbor's house. You shall not covet your neighbor's wife, nor his male servant, nor his female servant, nor his ox, nor his donkey, nor anything that is your neighbor's. That's commandment number 10, as seen in Exodus 20. With that, men, thanks for listening, and have a blessed day.